when most people have a bad ability to actually to hold the willpower of the choice in the moment. So what happens is someone comes in, people are the ones that test our boundaries. Someone says, "Hey, do you want to go to the bar and get a beer?" No, I don't want to get a beer. That's my first thought, right? And say, "Hey,
Hmm.
come on, man."
Yeah.
Okay, and they go. Well, here's what just took place.
Welcome to Stuck to Unstoppable, where we interview the world's foremost thought leaders to break things down in order to help you get past your hurts, habits, and hangups and finally level up and move forward. I'm your host, Steven Scoggins. Now let's go ahead and get into today's guest and our featured conversation. You're not going to want to miss it. What happens when you cross an entrepreneur, a national thought leader in the area of personal identity, and a world-class athlete that has appeared in the NFL and American Ninja Warrior? Well, you get a rock star of a human being. That's what you get, named Anthony Trucks. And joining me while I was on the road, he actually dropped value bomb after value bomb in this particular interview. So much so that I found myself listening as a student rather than a host. His story has not always been a string of successes. And after hitting rock bottom in his career and his relationships and even his personal identity, he discovered a proven process to help anyone find their voice in their life and in their business. Guys, help me welcome Anthony Trucks.
Dude, what's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm out here in California enjoying the weather while we still got it before the wintertime hits and my family. And man, I'm good. I'm blessed. No complaints.
Winter. I mean, like what's winter in California? I mean, really? I said like go from like
Yeah.
75 to 68.
Let me give a little preface though. So I played for the Buccaneers, which is
Yeah.
obviously, but then I played college ball in Oregon, which gets fairly
Yeah.
cold. And then I played with the
Yeah, yeah.
Redskins and the Steelers, which gets deathly cold. So
Yeah.
I've had my fair share, but yes, California's winter, it's, you know what, it's kind of like that thing, like whenever you, like, it's like 100-something degrees. Well,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, obviously like 90 feels better and cooler. It's just our version of it. So it feels
Yeah.
cold in comparison. Where everybody else, like my sister lives in Montana, Minnesota, sorry. And she's like, she's like,
Oh,
I
that's
boil
cold.
water. She's like, I can throw boiling water in the air and it won't hit the ground.
Are you serious?
Yeah. It's like
I
that.
didn't
It's
even think
that
that was
cold.
even possible.
Oh, dude, I've watched it. Seriously, boil water, watch it walk out of the house and throw it in the air. The air is so cold, it just turns into steam and all disappears. It doesn't hit the ground. It's craziness.
Oh my gosh, man. Well, goodness gracious, that's one piece of adversity. But hey, look, I was doing some I've been following your work for a little while now, and I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And one of the things I love most about it is I think we're kindred spirits. We both grew up in some pretty difficult circumstances, trying to walk through some stuff. We both went through times that were crazy challenging enough where we almost considered taking our life and things of that nature. You know, we've both been there, which is a pretty dark place to be. But at the same time, it's kind of created who we are. But
Yeah.
if you don't mind, give the audience a little idea of kind of who you are and how you were shaped, and just your raw background, if you don't mind.
Yeah, man. Who I am now is I feel like the best word to one of my clients said this like recently to me. She says, you're steady in nature.
Oh,
I was like,
ooh, I like that.
interesting. Because and I've worked with her for like 2 years. Just got to call
Yeah,
her actually. This was a conversation like last week. She's like, of all the people I've ever met, you're very
yeah,
steady in nature. She's like, I've known you for a couple of years. I've never known you to be overly angry or overly like crazy excited and happy. Not
yeah.
that I'm not happy, but she's like, not to the balloon doing crazy stuff like, yeah, everybody buy the bar beers, like that kind of stuff. But
Woo!
she's like, she's like, you're steady in nature. And for me, I feel like I'm settled inside. It's the best way
Yeah,
to explain it. I'm a man
yeah.
of God. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my career. I love the people I'm blessed to be able to impact their lives through my
Amen.
work and teach them to go through. So in that aspect, I'm at a place in my life where I've crossed some crazy finish lines.
Yeah,
And I realized
yeah.
that's the right time to go back and tell people how to run the race.
Amen.
So that's
Yeah.
what now the race I ran. Ooh, oh man, it's still.
Let's talk about the race.
Let's talk about the race. And like, obviously, like I'm still running the race. Let's be realistic. I
Yeah,
have
yeah, for
I
sure.
have a life. We live life. Life is not perfect. Is what happens between your plans. But yeah, so I got to this point where if I go back in my life when I was 3 years old, my mom said, I don't want my kids anymore. So she gave me and
Mm,
my three siblings foster care. So
mm.
the beginning of my life had the entrance with that feeling we typically arrive at sometime
Yeah,
later, which is I don't matter. This is scary. What is the next moments of my life supposed to look like?
yeah,
The world hates me. Like this was my
yeah,
entrance, where some people reach it
yeah,
late. So for the first 3 years of my life that I recall, like I was just passed around from these different foster homes and beaten and starved and just crazy, tortured. And it's just weird stuff that I don't know why people would do that to a child, but
yeah,
they did. And that's all. It's
yeah,
just we live in, unfortunately. 6 years old, I landed in my family now, and it was an all white family, very poor. I wasn't adopted for 8 years till I was 14. So I struggled in the very beginning of my life with identity heavily. And
Yeah.
that's really where my work is like in the identity of essentially who are you and who do you
Yeah.
need to be to have what you want to have.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of my years, I didn't think I was good enough because the world told me I wasn't good enough. You know, I was
Hmm.
programmed because we're all programmed. Like when we
Oh,
were
for sure.
kids,
Yeah.
15,
Yeah,
16,
absolutely.
your mom, your teacher, your coach, your colleagues, they've told you,
Yeah.
oh, this is what money is, what love is. This is what happiness looks
Oh,
like. This is what
absolutely.
career should look like. So we're running this programming, and I ran that for like the majority of my life. And I had to
Yeah.
find ways when necessary to upgrade that operating system. Like essentially, like
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
programmed, I had to upgrade that, but I didn't. And most of us don't know we're doing it. We're just
Yeah.
finding ways to survive, we'll call it.
Yeah.
So I started like, I had this identity issue and who am I? And so I tried football and I sucked. I got better. My mom got diagnosed with MS. I get a college
Mm.
scholarship as another expansion of my identity. I have a
Yeah.
kid at 20 years old, meet my real dad. You know, that's another expansion of my identity.
Yeah.
Still, so I'm juggling all these things. There's the former foster kid, adopted kid, only black in all white family. So I'm called the Oreo, son
Yeah.
of a sick mom, you know, good at football, father, husband, like all these crazy dynamics.
Yeah.
And I get to the NFL, and the NFL, like 3 years in, another expansion of my identity, like tear my shoulder, and it all comes crashing down, like
Mm.
the ground floor, bro. And this happens
Yeah.
to everybody in life. This is
Yeah.
my story, but everybody can attest to like, there's a time in our lives when we're sitting there going, what in the world do I do? Everything that made me me is gone. This is when
Yeah.
someone comes back from the military, or someone loses a job, loses a loved one, loses their career or whatever it may be. They gain a job, they
Yeah.
gain,
Yeah.
who am I? Where do I fit? And so many people
Yeah.
are, even now in COVID, it's this reaction. It's this
Hmm.
situation where the world is forcing you to be somebody different to succeed. And we don't know how to do that. We
Yeah.
just, we try, but we struggle. And I struggled, man. At one point I've lost my wife after I came home from the NFL. I needed
Hmm.
to regain this sense of, strength in Anthony. Cause who was I
Hmm.
without football? So I
Yeah.
lost, football. I opened a gym business and I'm there all day, every day. That thing's sucking. Because I'm
Hmm.
neglecting my wife, she ends up having an affair. My kids don't have a
Mm.
present father. I'm gone all day and I'm getting out of shape. Like I was always in shape. And so
Yeah.
everything that made Anthony was gone. So I was like, all right, this is life past football. I don't want this. Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I
Yeah. For sure.
what else am I working for, man? There's nothing else good. The
Yeah.
fruit had fallen off the tree and it was withering and dying on the ground. And man, like I wanted to take my life, and thankfully I didn't take any actions to. But at one point, somebody planted the seed. They were like, "Dude, like you're an inspiration to a lot of people in this community.
Hmm.
You don't know it,
Hmm.
nobody tells you, but like
Yeah.
what you've gone through and what you've accomplished, people look up to you." I was like, interesting. Like at the time, it sounds good, right? Because you're like, "Oh, cool."
Yeah.
Like this, but at the time, I'm also like, I just didn't want to be here last week. This isn't the time for me to start telling people how to live life. Like that's not.
Yeah.
I'm still in the race, man.
Yeah.
And so you progress past that, and like I was in a fog, because we get into a fog when life hits you hard. You just
Yeah.
go
Sure.
with emotions because you don't want to look at it. That's hard. That hurts.
Yeah.
I don't want the experience to have to eat my soul. So I'll drink it away. I'll smoke it
Yeah.
away. I'll drug it away. I'll sex it away, just so I can just be away from that feeling. And so like I was kind of running this gym, kind of being a dad, just that was in a hole. At one point I was in a 500 square foot studio apartment with my kids on an air mattress laying next to
Mm.
me, give them. And it was just this sad life I was living, man. It was like I was just
Yeah.
living to give them back to their mom so I can go hang out and distract myself again. And so I remember fast forward like to 2014. It's
Hmm.
April 15th. And I remember my mom passed away. Like I was sitting in the room holding her hand and she passed away. And it was this interesting moment because for me, I was we I don't want to say joy, but she was out of pain. Like
Yeah.
17 years, she was no longer in pain. Like that warmed me a little bit. But then there was also this really more mortal moment of like, damn, life is really finite. It's
Yeah.
short. It's only
Yeah.
47,
Yeah.
super finite. And my thing was like, she didn't get to reach her full potential. Her body robbed that from her. But she
Hmm.
allowed me to do something that statistically I should not be doing. Because any prison in America, 75% of the inmates are
Hmm.
foster kids like me,
That's right.
50% of the homeless population, less than 1% of us graduate college. I
Yeah.
had the ability to do the cool things I did and reach a potential because of how she loved me.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, at this moment, that seed that someone had planted years ago about this could be
Hmm.
helpful for people,
Yeah.
the seed got watered because I was like, man, what if I try to find a way to honor her memory through doing what she did for me, which is unconditionally love people to help them reach a higher potential.
Hmm.
I was like, that was a seed that, so I was like, I'm going to start telling my story, man. I'm going to start talking
Yeah.
about it. So I did. I started talking and sharing, and I ended up, building and growing. However, I was still in the race, man. I hadn't figured everything out. I still was, struggling.
Yeah.
And then we all have those moments that we get to where all of a sudden the light comes on.
Yeah,
It's
for sure. The
and when it
aha
comes
moment.
on, like imagine like it's,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
for some people it's like the light comes on and it's like you've been sitting in your couch in the the room eating Fritos and with the TV on and you're chubby and like you look
Yeah.
at your body, you're like, oh, this is disgusting. Like I
Yeah.
don't like this guy. That wasn't the exact moment, but the feeling was fairly similar. 2016, January 1st, I wake up and I look in the mirror, and on my bed was this woman who had flown from Russia, where I'd recently gone to speak, didn't speak my
Mhm.
language. And in my head, I was like, man, if my daughter saw me, I would be disgusted. I would never
Mm.
want my boys to see this. Like, I never want my
Yeah.
kids to do this.
Yeah.
This isn't who I've fallen so far from my faith. My mom is probably tossing in her grave, and my God would not let me into his home being this guy.
Mhm.
And it was this
Yeah.
light that came on, like, dude, you suck.
Yeah.
And it's okay. Like, it's a hard thing for us
Yeah.
to navigate as people because, you do suck at times.
Well, I
Like,
mean, that's where accountability starts, right? I mean, one of the things I love most about some of your story is you've always had this unique way of self-awareness and getting to a self-awareness place. I believe that, for example, there are really three great questions in life: Who am I? Why am I here? And what do I do about it?
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And then what we discover along the way, and I know it was something you discovered along your journey, is there's always patterns that are either leading you towards those things
Yeah.
or away from those things.
Yeah.
What age do you think you were when you started seeing the patterns of behaviors that really wasn't? I mean, it took a little while to really take shape before it really kind of became present. But I mean, when do you think you started noticing maybe the patterns needed to be interrupted?
32, 31, 32.
Okay.
Like it took a long time.
Yeah.
Because that moment when I
I was
woke up,
38, so you got me beat. So
hey, there you
yeah.
go. As long as I beat somebody, we're good. I got to run that race. But it's natural. And so I remember, yeah, man, that was the moment where the light came on. And that's when I started realizing, like, I'm the
Yeah.
common denominator in all of my problems. We all are.
Yeah.
We don't want to
Yeah.
admit that. Like the relationship falling apart, the marriage. Like I had to realize, like, dude, okay, your wife made a crappy choice. But in a
Hmm.
relationship, there's two people, which means she didn't get to a place where she felt she needed to make a choice by
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah.
Suck, but like that's a realization, like, damn, all right. So I had some control, but I needed to navigate where I needed to own that and actually make some amends and adjustments to
Yeah.
who I was. I wasn't I kept telling I got to run this business. So when the kids got out of school, I'd have clients until 8 o'clock. Then I'd, go get dinner, put the kids to bed, take them to school. I wouldn't see them for another,
Yeah.
48 hours. And my excuse was like, oh, I got to do my work. But like, no, I wasn't a
Yeah.
present dad. I was spending more time with other people's kids than my own. Like,
Yeah.
there's just a true dynamic, right? It's just,
Yeah.
so it's just like
What
having,
what did that real what was that realization like when you first realized that
oh, it
particular part?
hurts. Oh, it's
Yeah.
going to hurt. It's because if you think about it, a lot of the reason we have a lack of pain is because we operate so poorly that
Mhm.
we have a helplessness.
Yeah.
Like in operate, when I
Yeah.
say operate, because I've said it a couple times, and when I say like your identity is like the operating system of your computer. And you essentially are running this operating system. It runs in the background without us intentionally knowing it, right? And that's
Yeah.
really essentially it's your fortitude, emotional strength, and willpower and control. It's
Mhm.
your consistency in life. How long you
Yeah.
stick in something. It's going to be your discipline. Do you stay the course of what's there? How you execute.
Yeah.
Are you are a person that has like a happy disposition? Are you happy or are you
Yeah.
pessimistic? Right? That's how we operate, and how we
Yeah.
operate creates the sense of performance we have. So if I'm operating a certain way, I perform well, I
Yeah.
have success. And
Yeah.
the people who don't have success, it's because they perform poorly. And typically you perform poorly because you operate poorly, because you have
Mhm.
this identity running that
Yeah.
just sucks. And
Yeah.
so it's making excuses. It has no fortitude. It's not disciplined. It's not consistent. You buy a bunch of stuff and get shelf esteem because you want to get some help. So I spend some money on
Mhm.
it, and okay, I put it on my shelf, and all right, I bought it. So it's there now. Should feel good. But you don't crack it open. You don't use it. You
Yeah.
don't do the work, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'd done that, oddly enough. And I was like, why am I so broke, but still broken? Like what?
Yeah.
Like why? And that was my ownership. And so I did what I tell most people, kind of like a computer has to do. I
Yeah.
got to download all the different things that need to be updated. And then I got
Yeah.
to upload them into my life, the actions. And the
Yeah.
download's hard. Anybody that has to do the download will find that's where you get the power back of like, all right, I realized this is where I had weakness. That's my control. I had control. I kind of busted it. All right, let me work on it. Let me tear the ego apart.
Yeah.
Let me work on it. And when I did that, fix the marriage. Business
Well, I
got
mean,
better.
I consider
Present
you one of the
dad, like
most,
everything got better.
yeah, I mean, I consider you one of the foremost thought leaders when it comes to identity. There's not actually a lot of influencers, a lot of thought leaders, quasi gurus, guides, whatever you want to call them, that are really, really digging in deep to identity. And I'm really happy that you chose to pick up
Yeah.
that message specifically. So the question becomes is, all right, so we know that we've got triggers, traumas, and habits essentially that drive the negative behavior, right? We know a lot of that comes
Mhm.
from our influences, parental influences, relational influences, subliminal influences, right? These
Yeah.
different areas of life that they're coming through our eyes or ears on a regular basis, right? What do you think it takes to rewire your brain in such a way to actually get complete authenticity within your identity? In other words, what do you think the parts and pieces of identity are, and how do you think they integrate with each other?
Yeah. So it's what I call an ideal identity. Now, this is going to be
Mm-hmm.
the concept of what it is, and there's ways that you actually adjust all these things. So if you
Mm-hmm.
think about it, your ideal identity is the one that is ideal for your dream, not mine,
Yeah.
not Susan's or Tim's, but yours, right? So everybody has their own aspirations, dreams.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is when we think about wanting this thing, we have this immediate comparison to the fact that we are not that person. So we get this
Mm-hmm.
imposter feel of like, I don't
Yeah.
want to lean in because if I lean in, they're gonna
Yeah.
out me. They're gonna, well, it's not who I am, right? So
Yeah.
then the thing, well, how do I get to the point of having a true confidence in this area? And what it really is first you have to architect what that identity
Mm-hmm.
is for you. You got to craft it because it was
Yeah.
unintentionally done before. So now you got to
For sure.
intentionally do it. And this
Yeah.
at times honestly means accepting that you saw love the wrong way, or sex meant something
Mm-hmm.
different, or you were seeing money differently. And
Yeah.
that's really
That's
like
good.
that's the process I can talk about in a second. But the concept of your ideal identity is comprised of 6 main factors. And it's going to be essentially your belief system. What do you believe is
Mm-hmm.
possible?
Yep.
True to your root believe is possible for yourself, for the world, and that's out there. The thoughts that you have, because we can believe something, but we can have thoughts that are completely opposite, right? Which is,
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
believe
for
you
sure.
can't talk about this, but Anthony, can you? Are you able to? What if they say something negative,
Yeah.
right?
The
And then
voice
there's
in
the
the head.
big, yeah, the voice in the head. I call it the
Mm-hmm.
pessimistic co-pilot. And then you have,
I like your term better.
yeah, there you go. Then you
Yeah,
have the
that's
big
good.
actions you take, right? What are the big, bold,
Mm-hmm.
scary actions that you take that sets you apart to where you can stand up on a mountain and say, I slayed that monster. I'm the monster slayer now, right?
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is these each are like a Venn diagram. They overlap. And between
Mm-hmm.
beliefs and thoughts, you have your mindset. We all
Mm-hmm.
talk about mindset all the time. And unfortunately, too many people leaned on that without realizing that there's studies that'll show that if you don't have a self-categorization in an area, the mindset
Mm-hmm.
will never work for you. If I don't
Yeah.
believe I'm an entrepreneur, you can apply all the entrepreneur aspirations, affirmations you want, but you'll
Mm-hmm.
still not believe it's who you are. So you'll still
Yeah.
not succeed. When you
Yeah.
have between actions and thoughts, there's the what do I think I need to do every day? Work out, write emails,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is.
Yep.
And do I do it? And in between is your habits. And we all know about
Yeah.
habits. I don't go deep on that. If you have good habits, things can happen amazingly, right? Outside of the
Mm-hmm.
big
Yeah.
action.
Sure. Yeah.
Then you got a big key one, and this is between beliefs and actions. Now, this is the one that so many people lose sight of, but this is the one that matters because here's the thing. As human beings, we will fight for what we believe we deserve. Our identity will not let us fall below a line. If I'm a great dad, how dare you try to challenge me on being a great dad? That's who I am. I believe it's who I am.
Yeah.
And look what I've done for my kids. I quit my job. I show up to baseball. I show up to football. I coach. Don't you dare take that from me, right? I'm
Yeah.
I'm the CEO. I've done my work. There's a belief in an action. I did the work to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is too many people don't believe they deserve very much.
Yeah. That's
So
true. That's very true.
fight for
Yeah.
a little bit. And so
Yeah.
the question is, well, how do I
And
get there? And
settle.
this, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And not only that, but like they settle and they know they're settling.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sucky place, right?
And then
So
they go into comfort zone with it.
they do. And then
Yeah.
they don't push for more. And so it's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
how do you have these things lap? Well, beliefs and actions overlap. Think about any time that you've done something that you got done and you puffed your chest, get the chills, the goose pimples, like, ooh, I did that, right?
Yeah. Right.
Between belief and action is your personal pride or your positive ego. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
ego, everybody assumes is this negative thing, but the ego protects the identity without
Mm-hmm.
even having a second thought. It's the retort that you say. It's how are you
Mm-hmm.
disciplined? How do you respond, right? Are you
Yeah.
resilient? Because the ego shows up in the actions that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So what
Yeah.
happens is people believe they're supposed to do something and they don't take the action. You lose that. You get a small little identity
Yeah.
and you have it's protecting something small. And so what
Mm-hmm.
happens is you don't fight for what you believe you deserve because you don't believe you deserve very much. You didn't earn it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when you believe you should do the thing and you do it, holy crap, does that pump it up? And
Yeah, it
now when
changes the
someone
game.
comes to challenge, yeah, it changes the game. So when someone comes to
Yeah.
challenge you and take that, oh no, that's mine. Like you ain't dude, when I was 15 years old and I played football, I sucked for 2 years. But from 15 to 16, dude, I went to the weight room every day. I lifted weights, I ran
Hmm.
routes, I threw the
Yeah.
ball in the air. When I came the next year, dude, I am catching this ball because I deserve it. You do not deserve to take it from me. I'm making this tackle because you don't deserve to get away from me. You
Yeah.
aren't allowed to tackle me. You don't deserve that right. There's a
Yeah.
different sense of how I showed up in my life in the football field. It's the same when I'm here. Like I deserve that speech. I deserve
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
client because I know that I've done the work in the background to show up and serve amazingly. That's me. And I'll pop up and talk
What?
about it, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, one of the things that I think is important for pretty much anybody who's on this journey, right? We're all on the journey.
All of us.
Um, you talked about the ego being small, so you play small, right?
You
You
do.
talk about the ego growing, so you can play at a different level,
Yeah.
right? So you take these different things and you look at ego is directly tied to emotional intelligence,
Hmm.
how you respond, what the things that you say to yourself,
Yeah.
right? You take all those things and you begin to put those together, and essentially that creates the belief pattern, right?
Well, it's not, it's more than a belief pattern. It determines who you are. Because
Yeah.
the belief pattern is part of it. If you imagine all these things, a Venn diagram, beliefs, thoughts, actions,
Hmm.
overlaps, mindset, habits, and then ego. If you were to put a propeller on those and tilt the whole thing sideways and make it a drone, if they're all on, they all go to the top. You can elevate as high as you want. But
Yeah.
if one propeller is out, that thing tilts and flies into a wall.
Yeah, it
And
does.
so
I lost a drone one time that way.
yeah, that's what happens. So when you asked earlier, like, what is the identity? It's an active, living, breathing part of who you are. And when you
Okay.
consciously think through these little aspects, it allows you to see that, oh, the reason I'm not succeeding is because, well, my mindset's weak. I believe in
Hmm.
myself, but I keep second guessing my thoughts. Or you know what? I'm thinking this and I'm affirming this, but I don't believe this. Or
Yeah.
you know what? I haven't taken those bold actions anymore. Or my
Yeah.
habits suck. I mean, any one of those throw you off and you're trying to get to the top. And it's like, no, when you really want to succeed, that you need to learn how to operate at a higher level. And that's
Hmm.
understanding how all of these flow without you thinking about it. Here's some science for you. There's a part of our brain called the DMN, default
Yeah.
mode network. And
Yeah.
this is a part of your brain that whenever you are thinking about it, like, who am I? It shuts off. Like they studied
Yeah.
mice. Like when someone says, hey, who are you? Mice didn't ask, but people, who are you? That part shuts off. And we go to a
Yeah.
conscious part of like, oh, I'm a speaker, I'm a coach, I'm a father, I'm a mom, I'm a, whatever
Hmm.
it is. But then whenever someone lets you just be by yourself and you're just going through, like you're staring at birds and you see a car crash or somebody, that lights
Hmm.
up because
Hmm.
now who you are is running. You're in
Hmm.
flow. You're
Yeah.
operating. That operational part, it houses your beliefs, your thoughts,
Hmm.
your habits,
Yeah.
your mindset, your pride. It's all in there.
Yeah.
So when that's operating smooth, you're just in flow and you're performing very well. Your
Yeah.
performance determines your outcomes, your success you have or lack thereof. And so when you asked earlier, like, what is your identity? Like that ideal identity, you have to actually craft at this point in your life. I had to do it.
Yeah.
We all got to do it.
Yeah.
And
I did the
don't get me
same
wrong,
thing.
some people happen across it. Some people will just work real hard and figure it out. It just, let's be honest, it's not the only way.
I was
But
smacked
when
with a four
I,
by four. So
yeah, that's a good way to hit it, right?
life just hit me and said, hey, you're going to respond to this, whether you like it or not, Jared. So,
Yeah, we're forced to. And so for
yeah.
me, like my work has been, how do I shorten that from my 30 plus years to 3 months for people? And the shift
Hmm.
method I created, it actually does that, but it comes from an understanding. So I'm having people go back and for the first time, they're consciously thinking about who they are, stripping that ego back. Cause a lot of the ego also protects whatever the identity is in there. And if it's an
Hmm.
identity that kind of sucks, it'll attack it. It'll just pretty much protect it. It'll say, no, the reason this is happening is because of this, like I was doing. No, it's because I
Yeah.
got my wife was horrible and the market
Yeah.
sucks, so my business is doing poorly. All these things will still be protected by that ego. It's just, that's its
Yeah.
role, right? So when you start
Yeah, for
saying,
sure.
hey, ego, stop protecting that trash and start putting something
Yeah.
better in there, it protects that also.
Well, let me talk about this. So you have the situation where, yeah, all right. So let's assume you're doing the work, right? You're doing the work. You're working on yourself.
Yeah.
You're doing the quasi personal development with quotes, and I use that word loosely because personal development is a very loose word for a lot of moving parts,
Yeah, it
right?
is. Mhm.
So you look at all that. Let's talk about the overall influence. We know influences are actually really strong at the early onset of life, right?
Very
We
much.
know that it intensifies a little bit as you start going into adolescence. And we know it almost doubles down when you start going into your professional career because you begin the comparison piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we know all these places are there. One of my favorite YouTube pieces that you just recently did was actually on creating healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I believe in, that obviously, you've heard, show me your 5 friends, I'll show you your future. You're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's a life truth. It's a life truth, no matter how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
But what people don't talk about is how to select them,
Yep.
and then how to put a fence around making sure the wrong ones don't get in your yard.
Yeah.
So tell me about how you began to work with the boundary system, because I think you have a unique perspective on creating those boundaries and whatnot. And I think it's worthy of sharing.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people inside the yard, so you speak.
Yeah,
I mean,
they ain't supposed to be there.
yeah, it's just you deal with a lot of stuff. I think in the world, when you're out in the world, like I was out in the world, it happens. People want to be around you because you're the college star, and then you're the football star, and you're playing in the NFL, and then I got divorced, and before we got back together, I had this big window of like, all right, I'm the local guy who owns gym, former NFL athlete, like has a little bit of money, and so like you have all these people that come in, and then you let them in.
Yeah.
It's problematic because now you got all these people in the house, and like I don't even know half the people at the party, bro.
Yeah, right.
And then when I started having this moment of like I got to wake up to this, I started realizing like, okay, I run my life kind of like a business. I'm the company, and I have this product that needs to go to the next level. And it's like, all right, if I'm going to bring this business to the next level, what employees do I need? Now it sounds odd, but it's like at the same capacity, my intimate partner in my relationship, that's an employee. They hold a role, right? My kids hold a role. My friends hold a role. My clients hold a role. And I got to realize that every person is in this company with a specific purpose. And if I don't make sure I'm holding them to do their job, the company falters. So if I have a best friend that doesn't believe in what I do and doesn't support me, like, hey, bro, you're cancer to the company. You got to go,
Yeah.
And so that was the kind of first thought of like, right, how do I make sure I create what I call my dream team of people? And this is a scary thing. It is scary to get rid of people because the people feel
especially when they're friends and family, right?
Oh yeah.
When you got to fire your friends and family, that's the hardest one.
It's very hard to do. And that's what a lot of people focus on. And here's the problem. People only focus on getting rid of people. They never focus on adding people. They say they need a better circle, and I'm gonna go find a better circle. But here's the truth of what happens: the circle you need is already above you. I mean, you don't want to be around the same people. You're all floating in the same pool. I want to go to the higher pool, but you're not that person yet. So now we have this piece of me that comes in and says, "Oh, but I don't belong and I don't fit." And so it's just as much fear and anxiety to add to a new group as it is to get rid of the old group. So
for sure. Yeah.
So that's why people stay stagnant, because like, well, if I just stay here, there's no resistance. I'll just stay with these people. I don't even have to experience the pain of getting rid of people, and I can possibly add people, but you can't have space filled by the same. You got to have one or the other, bro. So you can choose. Like you can't add a new group of people or friends if the old ones are still in the space. So it becomes hard. So what I look at is, okay, great. I'm going to do this dirty work first. I remove people by giving them the option of getting better or leaving. Like, hey,
I like that. That's good.
Going. And it's beautiful this way, because now I give you an opportunity to improve it. If you don't, that's cool. At least only one person got hurt, as opposed to you staying in a bad place and me staying there with you. 2 people.
So what does that conversation look like? I mean, when you talk about giving somebody a chance to, hey, look, hey, dude, we've been rolling together for a long time, man. I got you, but
so
I'm going here,
Yeah, I start the conversation with letting them know that if I didn't want you to be in this, like, think about a business. If I had a business, I would fire you. I wouldn't have you come in for a meeting to talk about your poor behavior if I didn't want you there. Right.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
Truth is, like, hey, look, I'm having this conversation because I want you to run. I got rid of Nick because Nick sucks. Right. But hey, Sean, let's have a discussion, man. Like, I want you to be around this company, but here's the things I see you doing that I need I can't have around this business. You can do those for a different company, but it may not be for this one. But here's what I need. I need support. I need a conversation. I need you to be able to be there when I call on you. I need consistency. I need you to not down talk or downplay whatever we're doing. Now, I'd love to do that. If you choose not to do that, that's cool. Like, I'm not going to change you. But if you choose not to, like, I'm going to remove you. And it's kind of your choice. Whatever you choose to do, I'll love you close or love you from a distance. But that's the reality, right? So you have this kind of conversation.
Yeah.
And then you give them space. You don't harp on them. You just let them kind of operate, because no one wants to do something that was not their idea. But if you plant the seed and they go water it, oh, now we're good. So then allow them to improve. And if they don't improve, hey, guess what? A spot opened up in my life.
Yeah, right. And I'm going to fill it with somebody with
Yeah,
some sense.
it's
Yeah,
not my
yeah,
turn, and I don't feel bad anymore. And then what happens is, here's the unique thing: people at a higher level, they let's be honest, like I don't like people that come into the groups and things we do who have a ton of extra baggage that is bad baggage.
yeah,
So if you're talking about entering a new space, the first thing that you have to have if you want to come to a higher group is they have to know you made the sacrifices to get there.
yeah. That's true.
So if we know that, hey, you're coming to our circle, we know like you did the work, you showed up, you cut the people out, you did that work. Like, all right, let's see what you got, right? And here's the
Yeah,
crazy thing: people who are doing well, they get to a certain level where they realize that in order to feel successful again, I got to bring more people with me because I get a better feeling
for
knowing I
sure.
helped you. So I
Yeah,
find that my groups of people I'm in, they're all about helping people. I already had my success.
yeah,
You succeed doesn't take from mine. It can actually help, right? And
yeah.
so there shouldn't be this crazy fear around going into a group and not being there. They know you're not
Hmm.
there. Like that's the whole point of
Yeah, they do.
the
Yeah.
group. You know what I'm saying? So
So
now
do you
you
think
can.
that's the selfish truth of selflessness?
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
for me at this point, like I love seeing people win, man. And I know people hear that, and if you're not in the space of having that same feeling, it sounds odd because you're like,
Yeah.
I don't get that yet. But for me, like I've done great things, and it's like I call it the concept of marginal return or marginal utility. If I have 10
Hmm.
hamburgers and I eat, 3 of them, I'm stuffed. But I got 7 hamburgers. How do I feel good again without eating another hamburger?
Yeah.
You give it to somebody else who's hungry. Now I feel
Yeah.
good. Cool, man. Eat my, you feel good
Yeah.
again. Now the other part you asked is about boundaries. And boundaries are something that I'm going to go to the full steps of it, but essentially is most people, they don't set them to begin with. And if they do
Hmm.
set them poorly. What I mean by
Yeah.
that is they don't take a kind of account of what's really the things they're having in their life and putting it in a space that hurts. It's going to be hard to set a boundary for some people to stay out. Like I got to put that boundary in. And if they do it and they do it right, usually it's based off of triggers. A
Hmm.
boundary is
Yeah.
only held the moment it has. Like, the boundary is great, but it's only useful when a spear hits it. You know what I mean?
Gosh, that's so true.
And
That is
so it's
so
like,
true.
so now I got to have a way to, in the moment, block that. And what I tell people is you do not want to get to a space where you're making a choice to hold a boundary based on how you feel right now. You
Yeah.
got to think about it in advance. So I have like, what are my predetermined responses before the boundary gets tested? Now, once the response is put, I respond, I hold it. Now it's my choice to open the door or not. Now I'm in a space of I already put the boundary up. Let me sit back here and think. Do I want to open the door? So, for example, if someone's like, I got something I got to do Friday, family time is a boundary for me. Family time is first.
Hmm.
So when somebody asks, can you do something on this day? Even if I do not know if I have a plan or not, I'll be like, I can't, man. It's Friday. It's family time. We may be sitting
Hmm.
here doing nothing, with my socks on, just chilling in the house. But as far as I know,
Yeah.
my boundary is Saturdays for family, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Now, if something happens and I'm like, hey, you know what? My wife said we're going to be chilling here. Yeah, I can hop on for 30 minutes. Now I
Yeah.
can go back, but I got to have the boundary set. And then the other part of it is once I have a boundary set and I make the initial statement, the willpower is very weak for people.
Yeah.
And really what we're doing with boundaries is we're trying to train other human beings on how to interact with us. It's really what it boils
Hmm.
down to.
In a
It's
safe manner.
when most people have a bad ability to actually to hold the willpower of the choice in the moment. So what happens is someone comes in, people are the ones that test our boundaries. Someone says, hey, do you want to go to the bar and get a beer? No, I don't want to get a beer. That's my first thought, right? They say,
Hmm.
hey, come on, man.
Yeah.
Okay. And they go, well, here's what just took place. You train that person. It takes a second ask to get you to say yes.
Yeah.
So guess what? Now you always have to keep saying no twice, and then they're going to keep asking, you keep going with it. But what happens is this: over time, they say, come on, man, get a beer. No. Come on. No. Are you sure? No. Hey, come on. What? No. We're 5 deep. They're like,
Hmm.
all right, he ain't going to get a beer.
Yeah.
Next time, want to get a beer? No, I don't want to get a beer. You sure? No. Come on. No. All right, whatever. We're at 3. Then
Hmm.
after a couple times, you're like, hey, you
Yeah.
want to get a beer? No, I'm good. Cool. And they're gone.
Yeah.
And now it took less time. Now it takes ample willpower at first, but this is when like your kids want to go to the park, but it's like work time, or if it's someone wants to hold a meeting with you, or whatever it may be, your wife has honeydews. There's just different things that you could tie to
Hmm.
literally.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But if you don't hold the boundary the first time stable, the enemy's
Hmm.
going to come and attack the enemy. It's like, think about it. If I'm a soldier and I attack that wall and it took 2 hits, it came down. Better believe next time I'm hitting that thing twice again.
Yeah.
And
That's
so I'm
right.
like, dude, we've hit this thing 7 times. It's not coming down. All right, let's find a different weak point or somebody else's wall.
Yeah,
And so when
that's
you
kind
when
of
you
what
have
happens.
the boundaries, the big thing is have a pre-thought out response to what your boundary is going to be, and then realize you're going to have to hold it the first time because you're really trying to train somebody to take you at your word the first time.
Yeah, for sure. I think part of that too is obviously becoming aware of that a boundary is needed. And I think you actually hit on it kind of in a roundabout way when you actually began talking about the boundary, which is anytime someone is doing something or saying or crossing a boundary in a sense where you don't need to be doing, saying, or somehow engaging in that moment.
Hmm.
That kind of identifies the boundary, because I think far too many people, one of the things that they have a hard time with specifically is actually identifying what that boundary actually is. Like,
Yeah,
what is a boundary, right?
yeah.
And the
Well,
way I
someone's telling you.
articulate it, yeah, for sure. It's when you're being pulled in a direction you don't want to go, right?
Or
Essentially, whether
someone's
it's
someone in
financially
your
or
life,
relationally or whatever.
yeah, or someone in your life is telling you, and your ego won't let you listen to it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, one of the other things that I think that is powerful about what you've been doing and the work that you've been doing specifically is this concept of accountability,
Mhm.
right? And you have from my understanding, is what you call own my shift.
Yeah, yeah.
Own my shift. So, explain to me what own my shift is.
Well, the idea is, well, my goal for people is to have a makeshift happen. I call it, right?
Yeah,
So
make shift happen. That's
make it
good.
happen, right? But in order to do that, you got to own your shift, and then
Yeah.
own your shift in and of itself is like three specific words, right? The first word is own, which means you got to own that there's something you got to work on. If you don't
Hmm.
admit there's a problem, you'll never have permission to progress. You
Yeah.
just won't. Because you'll never tell yourself, I got to work on that. So you'll just stay stagnant and do the exact same thing. And you'll date the same person, get the same job you hate. Like it just happens over and over because
Yeah.
you never gave yourself permission to improve. And
Yeah.
so what I'm big on is you got to own that something's got to be worked on. And that typically is the hardest part. But without that, you're never going to actually do the right work. You'll end up, what I can do is
Yeah.
tell people, you're going to end up climbing a ladder, all this work, and you'll find at the very top, it's leaned against the wrong building. All this
Mm.
work in
Yeah.
the wrong spot, right? And
Yeah.
so once you own that there's something to work on, now you got to realize it's your work, it's your responsibility.
Yeah.
Now
For
in
sure.
my life, I had to own that I had issues with, like, from being a kid, issues with trust, right?
Hmm.
And I had issues when it was my wife, right? Issues in the business. I had to own I wasn't the best businessman. And so what happened is once I had these realizations, some of these things, they're my fault. Like the business
Hmm.
part was my fault. However, it wasn't my fault how my mom treated me and gave us away. I was a kid, I
Yeah.
was 3 years old. But here's the unique thing. In both of those situations, it is my responsibility to work on that part of my life.
Yeah. It's
No
true.
one's coming to save. It's not going to be some caped crusader to fly in and save me. It's me. And most people don't get to they harbor so much anger for something that happened that wasn't their fault that they will endure that pain because their ego won't let them work on that. It
Mm.
wasn't my
That's good.
fault. So you're
Yeah.
gonna
That's
let that.
good.
So like, okay, so let's say that someone goes in the kitchen and drops this, spaghetti on the ground. You're gonna go in that room and step on it and let it get all moldy and everything because it wasn't your fault, or you're gonna clean it up
Yeah.
because it needs to be cleaned up so you can walk around. Like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be pissed, but I'm gonna work on it. But now I got a clean floor, right? So
Yeah.
that's the big thing. You got to own it, and then you realize it's your responsibility to work on it. And then the last part is most people, they're aware of parts of their life where they have stuff they have to work on. And it's going to be on them to work on it, but they're like, I don't want to do it. I don't feel like it. And they'll
Yeah.
complain all day long. They're like, I hate this relationship and she's horrible.
Yeah.
And have you talked to her? No. Well, have you left her? No. Well, then it's your fault the longer you stay there because the
Yeah.
shift part is the work. When you
Yeah.
realize there's something going, like I had a buddy who was in the middle of a horrible marriage, and I'm never a proponent of divorce, but it was a situation where it was necessary. And if he kept complaining about it, and I'm like, and one day I was like, dude, have you had a conversation? No. Have you talked to her like about leaving? No. I said, then every single moment you're enduring this is your fault now because you've done
Mm.
nothing to change it. You've done no work.
Yeah.
So stop complaining, or at least do this work and have a different complaint, right? And
Yeah.
it set a tone. And in that I was like, okay, there's a different progression that took place. But the thing is you got to understand that once you're aware of these, the only way to end your suffering is to take an action. Action
Yeah.
ends suffering. So you got to shift, right? This is where
Yeah.
this ownership part comes in, is you're shifting internally. We're shifting that part of your identity I talked about. And it
Hmm.
sounds like this esoteric, philosophical
Yeah.
identity. It resides in some spiritual bubble in the world. No, man, it resides in how we show up for this call, how you're still getting things
Yeah.
done. It's how we operate every single day that makes success second nature. And when
For
you
sure.
understand that piece and you understand how to shift those things, now success literally becomes an autopilot achievement. The things that in
Mm.
fact were like hard back then in the day, we'll call
Yeah.
it, they're so easy now.
Oh, they
And
are.
yeah, and the differentiator
Yeah.
is how much can you get done? Because where you may only operate for, let's say, if someone operates for a couple hours a day and they're bogged down, overwhelmed, I can operate for 6, 8.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
I can go, which means at the end of a year, I've got 3 years progress on you.
That's right.
And
That's
you
right.
wonder why I'm successful? Like
Yeah.
it's not rocket science. It's
Yeah.
just the fact that I could operate better than you. And it wasn't based on willpower. That's the thing, is people try to willpower themselves into doing stuff, and you'll do it for a week, maybe 2, but you can't willpower stuff for 4 or 5 years. You
Yeah.
got to be able to do that effortlessly, like effortless effort. And the
Yeah.
only way to get there is when you shift the identity of the person it's who they are to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And the ego protects it, and it
Mm-hmm.
becomes an ease. So that's why
Yeah.
successful people typically make things look easy. It
Yeah.
actually is easy to them.
Yeah. And when you also don't see them doing it behind the scenes either, right? So I'm a firm believer that there's a mindset, if you will, of, hey, I want to reach the summit, but I don't want to climb the mountain.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Right. Well, it's in the journey up the mountain that the legs become stronger.
Yeah.
So the next mountain you climb, it is a little more effortless.
Yeah.
It is a little easier climb.
It's a hero's 2
So
journeys.
yeah, it's exactly right. And I think at the end of the day, we all want to be seen, we all want to be heard, we all want to be affirmed. But I think the gift comes in the moment when you see those things inside yourself without having to see them from somebody else's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
You finally, you've known that you've done the work. You've known that you've changed your tendencies and your habits and some of your blind spots. You've known that you've taken the time to grow yourself to a point that now you can become a mentor.
Yeah.
Everything that you've learned, everything that I've learned in many respects has been taught through hardship, but yet people don't want to face hardship.
Yeah.
Hardship produces the wine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how the new wine gets in the new wine skin.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, when you look at this whole thing, one of the reasons that I was so excited to talk to you today is because of identity and how to shape it. I think far too many people are running around with the identity someone else gave them rather than discovering what that identity should be for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And creating it and activating your own damn self, like with a plan, maybe for the first time in your life.
Yeah.
Plan. Because it's like when I have discussions with people, any successful person I've ever known, I can ask them, hey, think back to when you were unsuccessful. Who were you back then?
Mm-hmm.
Almost to a T verbatim. It's like, oh man, I was a different person.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so like that in of itself should be a light bulb that says, oh, can I say that about my past?
Mm-hmm.
If you can't, then you haven't made that shift. And the only reason you know successful people is because they have done it, whether they even knew it or not. I've taken, it took me the long way around. It takes a lot of people the long way. But man, if you can understand that little key piece, game changer for your future.
Dude, it's beautiful, and it's beautiful talking to you. I mean, it really is. I could probably talk to you for 3 hours straight, honestly.
I do that
Definitely. Yeah. So, quick question for you. I mean, how can the audience stay engaged with you and learn more about what you're doing and a lot of the work that you're doing? Because a lot of the work you're doing is amazing. So, how can they learn more about it?
Yeah, I mean, if they go to Instagram and just follow me there, one thing I recommend is if you get a chance, DM me the word shift. It lets me know that you're in a space. You're like, hey, man, I got some aspirations and goals that I'm struggling to hit. Maybe I'm not able to stay super consistent. My routines are off. I'm not very disciplined. Because this is the big thing. Sometimes emotions kind of get in the way, and I'm in and I'm out, and I start and I stop. I don't execute well. Like, just DM me the word shift, and I'll share with you a couple of things that we do with people. Or you can go to slowergo.co and take a quiz that lets you know which of 4 identities you're currently at and how to shift to one that's going to be the most successful for you.
Love it, dude. Love it. Well, appreciate you coming on, man. I'm sure I'll be listening to this particular episode myself over and over again. I love the topics. I love the way in which you're approaching things. I love the way in which you've been structuring it. It's clear that you've taken a lot of time, a lot of energy to not only just develop the thought, but also develop the process.
Oh yeah, the process it's dialed now, man. I actually just I was looking at before here, like I have a book coming out in spring of next year, and so we're in the process of like getting all those things tucked in to where it's nice and like succinct and clean. Because I've spent so much time on this dry erase board making images and pictures and frameworks and putting in the coaching programs and guiding people through, and it's like, all right, it's time to take the concepts and what I've seen work for people's lives and put it
Yeah.
into a process that people can actually consume in a book and apply.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, when you get ready for book launch, you got to come this direction. I'll have you back on in a heartbeat.
I appreciate that, man. I'm seriously gonna put you on a list. I'm not even
Hey,
joking.
no, jot me down, dude. It's all good. We got some of the same friends, man. It'll work out.
All right, count me in, man. I appreciate that.
All right, dude. Well, I appreciate your time, and I'll have you get on soon.
Awesome.
All right, dude. Take care. See ya.
You too. Thanks. Better.
I told you that dude was a rock star. And if you love that one, you're absolutely going to love this next one right here. Check it out.
She said, do you meditate? And I literally went on a diatribe. Meditate? I don't have time to meditate. I'm a multimillionaire. I run the most notable sports agency in the world. I used to be the CEO of the world's first smartphone. Do you know who I am? Why would I meditate?